Hello, real progressives. It's Rocco and Friday broadcast, 10 p.m., June the 8th, Friday afternoon, Friday night. How's everybody doing today? Today, I'm going to go over the issues that were in the media in the past week, all the BS and lies and all the shit that I've been watching from, HBO to CNN to Fox, all the different mainstream news networks. So I figured, that'd be a good thing. Go over that every week, all the different news stories every week as quickly as possible. So that's what we're going to do. Just give me 1 second here. Let people fill in and start to share the broadcast. Okay. All right. So to start, I wanted to start with what I saw Bill Maher last weekend on Saturday. Hi, what's up, Ray? And he had Bernie on. Bill Maher had Bernie Sanders on last weekend, and it was I was upset because this was another missed opportunity that Bernie Sanders had. He could have took this opportunity to really expose and talk about the real issues that Americans are facing every day. And instead, he, was fear-mongering over Trump, but, Trump, fear of Trump is not going to unite the working class. First of all, the DNC gave us Trump, and people, understand that. This isn't a mystery. The DNC was more concerned with beating Bernie Sanders and the progressive wing of their own party than with beating Trump. So what that means is the DNC was more comfortable with a Trump POTUS than with a Bernie POTUS. So that tells you who the DNC truly represents. It's controlled opposition. The Republicans and Democrats are both right-wing neoliberals that put profit over people in society. And, I can't say it enough. So, if you want to unite the working class, advocate a federally guaranteed living wage job for every single person. I was surprised. I really thought that he would go to that, being as he just came out with this, talking about putting out this proposal for a federally guaranteed job program, so why would he not bring that up? They're all talking about how to unite the left, and they're all talking about, Bernie said this. He said the DNC is too overwhelmed with tweets and the absurdity of Trump, so they can't focus on the issues. I mean, is this an excuse? Seriously. But that's what he said. The other guy was saying, so many don't mind the vulgarity of Trump. And I'm like, yeah, why do you think that is? Because people are hurting and they thought that Trump represented them. All right. He was the outsider. People they wanted anything but another establishment candidate. And the DNC, if they would have ran Bernie, we would have had tons. The vote would have been, tons would have turned out to vote if Bernie would have won the nomination. Donald Trump would have got smoked by far. So it's insincere, it's, disingenuous for the DNC to keep playing this Trump fear card to try and unite the left to vote for a corporate Democrat, a right-wing Democrat. The thing is, economically, by targeting unemployment, which creates massive scale systemic poverty throughout America. That's what people care about. They don't care about Trump's tweets. They don't care about, the dumb shit that Trump does on a day-to-day basis that doesn't affect their real lives. That's the thing. And then also, we inflict police terror. We criminalize peaceful behavior and peaceful behavior and vice. So this cops legally rape, rob, and kill people over flowers, and people don't know why the majority of Americans don't mind vulgarity, because America, by and large, is radicalized. The society is in pain People are starving. They don't have food. They can't find living wage work. They got to survive on the black market. This doesn't make for a civilized society. This doesn't make for a considerate society. This is why you get a candidate like Trump that appeals to the working class. All right, because they're so ground down. They are so raw. They don't care about decorum. They care about survival. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But then, one of the other guests, and I don't even, it doesn't even matter who their names are because they all sounded the same. He says, "Oh, I hope the Republicans get smashed at the ballot box to give them a come to Jesus moment." And I'm sitting there thinking, we know exactly who the Republicans are. They tell us exactly who they are. That's no mystery. DNC up call. The DNC that needs the come to Jesus moment, not the Republicans. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. They're being pieces of shit, like everyone knows. They don't try to hide that fact. All right. It's the Democrats that pretend that they represent labor. They're the ones that need the wake up call. They're the ones that need to listen to the people instead of running centrist candidates all over the place. Like we just saw in California. I guess we won a few. I guess I talked to Savage Joy, and she said a few of our people won, like Kenneth Mahita and California and a few other ones. That's pretty good, but by and large, all the centrists won. It's like and there's so much groundswell out there. There's so much popular support. And it just I want to see the Democratic Party die. They keep on dividing us, keeping us chasing our tail on the hamster wheel, and I'm sick of it. I hope you guys are too. Then next thing I see on the news is North Korea, and over and over again, the general theme is we can't trust them. We gave them money before. They still developed a nuke. We made a deal with them in good faith. And they went behind our back. And I'm sitting there thinking, really? We're talking about we can't trust North Korea because they welched on a negotiation with us. Look at what America does around the world. We ripped up the contract we negotiated with Iran in good faith. We got Libya to give up their nukes, and then we let them topple the government. All around the world, we violate agreements. Look at all the agreements with the American Indians we violate left and right. It's disgusting. But yet they want to talk about North Korea starving their people to have a strong military. What do you think America does? And only it's worse in America because we don't need to starve our people to have a military. We have infinite spending power. So it's pure, it's pure evil. That's all it is. They want to keep us precarious. They want to keep us in pain at the bottom so we can't unite in solidarity. We can't organize and fight for a spot at the kitchen table. That's what it's all about, keeping us the precarious class. And they want to talk, most world, Jim Kimmel, whatever his name is. Really though, it's almost like Americans, they think we have some type of moral high ground in America. I don't get where they think that or where they think that comes from, because everywhere we look in reality, just take American hero John Kiriakou and Bloody Gina of the CIA. All right. This American hero, John Kiriakou, did time over America's torture program. Torture prison. Then Bloody Gina, the director of that torture program for the CIA, gets promoted and gets to be the head of the CIA. If that doesn't tell you about the morals of our nation, I don't know what does. We lock up the guy that does the good thing. You would think, exposing a torture program that violates the Geneva Conventions, violates our own Constitution, this would be a good thing. But yet we put him in prison. All right. Then the director of that torture program, the director that was in charge of all these human rights violations, all these war crimes, she was promoted to run the CIA. Are you kidding me? And we have the nerve to sit here and act like we have moral superiority in the world. This is sickening. It really is. And then, like, I look at Kim Kardashian. I give her credit. She went and she met with the president, and she was talking about sentencing reform. She was talking about prison reform. That's great. And she ended up getting a grandma free. And just think about that. We charged this lady, and we're going to give her life in jail for crimes of consent, selling drugs. A flower. She was going to get life in jail. Kim K got her out. That's great. Media and MSNBC, they completely missed this opportunity. First of all, they are the ones that should have had John Kiriakou on to be talking and exposing our nation's evil and fight to get him a pardon. But nobody cares because this whistleblower was targeted under Obama, not Trump. So, I saw John Kiriakou on Fox a couple days ago. They're the ones that gave him airtime, not the so-called liberal media. It was Fox News that gave the airtime to the whistleblower. It's sad, all journalists should be wanting to fight for truth and they should have integrity, but instead we got state-run, corporate-owned media. So, it's crazy. And then if they didn't want to bring John Kiriakou on, how about just talk about the issue Kim K was talking about the president with? Prison reform, sentencing reform. Talk about how crazy it is in the first place that, we criminalize nature and peaceful behavior to begin with. The fact that cops legally rape, rob, and kill over flowers and peaceful behavior. That's what they should be talking about, not Trump's tweets, not things that don't matter. Then the next thing, we got this trade war. Now last week I heard Trump saying how Canada takes advantage of us, Japan takes advantage of us, China takes advantage. Everyone's taking advantage of us. I don't know how making cheap cars and cheap imports for us is taking advantage of us, but apparently, Trump thinks it is. And so he slaps these tariffs on our trade partners, which is just going to jack the price of goods up for us. These companies aren't going to lose money. They're just going to jack the price of goods up. And then now they're hitting us with tariffs, $3 trillion just from Mexico alone, from bourbon to pork and all kinds of different things. That's going to really hurt the American worker. And Europe and Canada are supposed to follow suit. And the whole thing about this is, this is the most biggest misunderstanding in the world. Our trade deficit is a great thing. It can be a great thing if government responds properly. That it's as simple as that. We get the finite real resources from the whole world for our infinite dollars. That's not a bad deal for us. And it's not robbing the rest of the world either. They want to save in dollars. They want to sell us goods. We don't make capitalists in China, build products and sell them to us. They want to do that. And we want to buy them. That's a good thing. It frees up our jobs to then focus on society, raising everybody's standard of living with things like single-payer health care, top-notch education for all, kindergarten through college, green sustainable energy, child care and elderly care. All these types of things that raise everybody's standard of living. So we don't got to chase those jobs of yesterday. We don't need those jobs back. We don't need to, toil in a factory all day making widgets for starvation wages. Our time can be much better spent focused on society, raising everybody's standard of living with a federally guaranteed living wage job program. That's how, because the whole thing of this is our government has the deficit enough to cover the trade deficit and still put our domestic private sector in surplus. So a federally guaranteed living wage job program that automatically targets the deficit to full employment. So it automatically, adjust our spending to offset the foreign leakage. That's how that goes. So the trade deficit is a good thing. We get finite real resources from the world for our infinite dollars. That's not a bad deal. All right. And then this guy, I think it was David Brock, he was talking about all of this, and he was saying, this is real bad because this is why we need to integrate our economies. Canada, America, and Mexico have to be integrated. And now because we're all arguing, Mexico is looking like it could go socialist in the next election. And that's really bad. That's why we must integrate our economies in America. And he says how good NAFTA was overall. And I'm thinking, we do need to integrate our economies. That's true. But only for the general welfare of society, for the public purpose, all right? Not for profits for the capitalist class at everybody else's expense. That should never be government's job. Socially owned government is supposed to work for the public purpose and let the individual make what they can from the balanced economy that creates. A socially owned government's never supposed to work for the private purpose of the individual and force society to make do with the scraps. That's fascism. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't even make sense. The potential future jobs, let's see. Yeah, roads that don't destroy your axles. Yeah, really. We got so much work right now that isn't getting done. The private sector doesn't want to do this work because there's no profit motive in it, whatever the reason. But this is work that needs done and is essential to civil society. It's essential to the general welfare of society. Like real progressives are saying, think, crumbling bridges, think crumbling roads, think poisoned water, all these types of things, childcare, education, healthcare. We have tons of needs right now. So we should be taking advantage of our trade deficit while we can, because that won't be like that forever. We won't have the international reserve currency forever either. And we don't need it, but we should at least take advantage of our trade position while we have it. When we have to, if we have to, we can move back to domestic production. But right now we run a trade deficit, and that's nothing to be scared of. We need to take advantage of it. We need to make the best of it. Let's see. And for the general welfare of society, never for profit. Trade agreements are supposed to protect labor. They're supposed to protect the environment. NAFTA was bad because it didn't do those things. It allowed corporations to, ignore environmental regulations, laws, and that's the exact wrong thing to do. These trade agreements were made with the idea to bring more profit to the 1%. It wasn't. These trade agreements were not in the spirit of the general welfare. I don't know what else I could say about that. You okay? My kid's in there jumping around. All right. So then from there, I wanted to talk about immigration. This is the next thing I was seeing a lot about. I was seeing Paul Ryan a little bit speak about Trump's 4 pillars for immigration, 4-point plan for immigration reform. I guess it was the big focus of Trump's State of the Union address. The first thing is a pathway to citizenship for 1.8 million DACA enrolled. It's supposed to be over a time period of like 10 to 12 years with work requirements, with education requirements, and good moral character assessments. Also, $25 billion for a new wall, plus changes to legal immigration, separate, as we'll talk more about later. Stopping chain migration to only minor children and spouses to be sponsored. Stopping the diversity visa lotto. This is where they already had education and work requirements for this diversity visa lotto, and the Republicans acted like they didn't, but they did. And this thing took 50,000 people a year from places that were unrepresented in the world. But next thing he was talking about is faster deportation time. If you notice, all of this stuff, all the focus is on the victims, right? It's on illegal, it's on immigrants, it's on people trying to come for a better life. I never understood, I kind of do understand, but I don't understand why other people don't understand this. You don't focus on the victim to stop a crime. You focus on the perpetrator. Go after the employers, not the immigrants trying to make a better life for themselves. And then when you're talking about these kids being separated from their mothers and fathers, I saw Jeff Sessions on there talking, and he says, oh, well, it's the same as any criminal. If you get arrested in the streets, you're going to have to be separated from your kids. And I'm like, yeah, but, people coming, seeking, looking for asylum are not committing a crime. So, does this guy not, does he not know that the, Statue of Liberty right on it says, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses? This is the idea. Not a small thing. This is the idea America was founded on. It's not a small thing, but they don't like that. And separating kids from their parents, the whole thing it is they're trying to deter other immigrants from coming. They're trying to say, well, if you might as well just stay home. And they're doing that with economic terror and police terror and all these different ways. But if they would focus on the employer and they would say, look, if you get caught hiring an illegal immigrant under wage, then you go to jail for 10 years. Right off the bat, mandatory minimum. I guarantee you that people wouldn't be hiring illegals or anybody else that they shouldn't be, or paying a starvation wage. Problem with if we started to enforce it, you don't gotta hurt the victims to stop the problem. That's insane and cruel. And we'll see this over and over and over again a couple more times before I even get done, because next I'm going to be talking about Rudy Giuliani on CNN. Last week he's talking about how Martha Stewart and Dinesh D'Souza and Trump are all victims. From Giuliani, that's rich, considering what he did in his life. Government can't prove the intended crime, he says, so they get you for lying. He says, this is how we got the mob. He says the punishment doesn't fit the crime. And I'm thinking, yeah, really. Punishment like Martha Stewart or something, but coming from Rudy Giuliani. This is a guy that was the prosecutor for many years in New York. He took away people's lives. He gave people multiple years of hard time over flowers. Talk about don't fit the crime. Are you serious? These people, they're the ones that are crazy. It's insane. And then he wants to talk about Stormy Daniels, comparing Trump's 3 wives, saying, oh, well, how can we damage Stormy Daniels' reputation? She sells her body. She's in porn. She has no reputation. You can't that is a sick, piggish statement. First of all, how you feel about her has nothing to do with her reputation. To do with it, and if she could still be damaged, she's a human being. And let me just say for the record, women that sell their bodies have much better, they're much more honest than men in politics. So and also this is ironic in the hypocrite different, Rudy Giuliani's supposed to be a Catholic. He's supposed to be Christian. He's supposed to follow Jesus. Well, guess who Jesus hung out with? Criminals and prostitutes. He was a socialist. Thought the best were the politicians, and he overturned tables in the temple. He preached against capitalism. He fed the masses. Yet they don't want to pay attention to that, but yet we're a Christian nation. I mean, my God, before you, and so many regular people also agree with this. I hear regularly, like this. Really, how many mothers out there would be happy their daughters are in porn? And really, I don't think any mother would that would be their first choice. But, in reality, when you can't survive, so, if that's what you got to do to survive, and I see this, I live in this, I live in the streets. All right. I know people that have to sell their bodies, and they're not bad people. These are honest people that would give you the shirt off their back, hardworking, good people, but they have to use what they got to survive. That's a crying shame, but it's not a mark against their character. And some people, first of all, some people don't look at sex like the rest of us. So I think there could be a small minority of girls that actually enjoy that. And why shouldn't they? Good for them. More power to them. But for the most part, most of these women, they don't want to be, they're forced into that way of life because our government inflicts economic terror on us all. And so there's not, even if every single worker had great job skills and tons of motivation to work, there's simply not enough living wage jobs for everyone to have. So we're always, as long as government targets unemployment, we will always have massive scale systemic poverty throughout America. And that's something everyone needs to understand. And we need to stop judging other people so harshly. Ben Carson's another one. He wants to help people on HUD by raising their rent. Get this, because this will give them motivation to get out and get off of HUD and get a job. Never mind the fact that just about everybody on HUD already has a job, pretty much most of them work. And that in and of itself is an indictment on our society. But, every which way you look at this, how are you going to tell people that they need to get a job if they want to get life-saving public services? And then at the same time, the Federal Reserve is raising rates with the stated reason of, trying to, cool off an overheating economy. But our economy is not overheating. Everyone keeps saying we have this great economy. Even at 3% unemployment, which I don't think we're even at, but even that is millions of people unemployed. And that creates millions more that are underemployed as a result. So, I mean, I look at it, it's real easy. If we implemented a federally guaranteed living wage job for every single person who wants one today, I think between 15 and 25 million people would sign up, based on, Dr. Joe's numbers and, Pavlina Chernova's numbers. I think that they're all kind of lowballing, but I think it's more around 25 million. So really, to me, if you ask me what the underemployment number is, it's 25 million people, so, that don't sound like a great economy to me. People could work full time and they can't even make ends meet. This isn't a recovery for the 99%. We still haven't recovered from the global financial crisis. And that brings me to Bill Clinton. I seen a great meme on Real Progressives the other day, and it said something like and account for his actions to the Me Too movement, but he has to explain and apologize for wrecking the economy with his federal budget surplus in the 90s. And, and people still today don't get this. They'll still hold up the Clinton budget surplus as an achievement of some sort, like it's a pile of cash that the government can use to pay off debt or something. People don't understand that when the government runs a surplus, it is starving the economy of dollars. That's like, okay, let's say the government spends $100 into the economy and it takes out 110. All right, that means that the economy has a deficit of 10 and the government ran a surplus of 10. So that's not a good thing. Then that means we don't have money in the economy to buy production. So we're forced into copious amounts of private debt just to consume production and survive. All right, that's what it's all about, the neoliberal era. They want to privatize the public space and deregulate everything. Then they starve the economy of public spending to force us all into private credit. That's how it goes. And, people want to argue this point over and over and over again. And they just don't get it. I don't understand. They don't want to read the material. They don't want to, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just easier to think about it as like, as not seeing the reality. Because that's what people do all through all of these issues. People don't want to face reality. They want to be able to sleep easy. And to do that, they have to be able to deny the horrible status quo that's in place today. They have to be able to be indifferent to all the human suffering, pointless human suffering we have in our society today. It's just sickening. Next I saw this guy. He's an ex-Fox analyst, Lieutenant Colonel Peters. And he was flipping out. I mean, he was tripping. He was flipping out about Trump and democracy, going on and on and on about, the Constitution, and we're in a constitutional crisis all of a sudden. And he was asking, how can Fox News sell out America like this? This is, it's so crazy. And, and then Trey Gowdy, a Republican, and Paul Ryan were casting doubts on Trump's Spygate story. The FBI would want. Bill Maher was mocking Trump, saying the FBI doesn't do moles. Trump should know this. That's not the FBI. The FBI doesn't do moles. I'm thinking, really? Have you ever heard of J. Edgar Hoover? Have you ever heard of what Nixon did to the anti-war movement? What Nixon did to the black community? With the FBI? Really? This is insanity. Let's see. Thank you, Stephanie. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to be trying to take some questions all through this. So let's see. Fox Christianity. This is from Trisha Roberts. When you have a moment, check this out. It's quite funny, but also disturbing at the same time. Yeah, if it's about Christianity, it probably is. Let's see. Can a state introduce Medicare for all? It must be introduced at the federal level. The state doesn't. The state can't make their own money, so the state is it's revenue constrained. So a single payer program would maybe in California might do well, but in a state like mine, like Pennsylvania, it wouldn't do well at all. We're not nowhere close to the amount of revenue that California brings in. So really, the only way to do a proper single payer program is at the national level. If you ask me, it is a public good too. Let's just say that healthcare is an essential public good. It's essential to the general welfare of society. All right, this is government's job. It's mandated by the Constitution to mint and tax to provide for the general welfare of society. So when government instead works for the profit of the 1%, we make for-profit medicine, Now we got this public, essential public good that is inefficient and ineffective. And many people, are suffering and dying of treatable, preventable illness because they have a lack of cash. And that's not how you get civil society. You see, so government can provide healthcare free for everyone. If government's paying doctors to administer healthcare, you don't need to charge the end user. Why would you? Government doesn't need profit or even revenue to spend and operate. It makes all of its money at will, by law, from thin air. So, government never has to it's the whole point. That's why we have a government, to maintain the general welfare of society. And we keep seeing our government privatize the public space and deregulate everything. Healthcare is a perfect example. This one-time free public service is now for profit, and it's ineffective and inefficient. And we pay more and get less than the rest of the world. And you see this everywhere. Education is for profit, inefficient, ineffective. Energy, inefficient, ineffective, and we're we're killing ourselves, we're poisoning ourselves in the process with these fossil fuels. Everywhere government is putting profit over its constitutional mandate to the general welfare, problems happen. When it comes to imperialism, for-profit imperialism, we go to war. The military-industrial complex justifies its own existence with more wars. We deregulate whole regions of the world just so that we can, get public support for more for-profit wars. It's insidious. Let's see. So basically their whole thing was, Trump is trying to weaken our public institutions, and he definitely is. And some, like what Pruitt and the EPA, Scott Pruitt was a notorious environmental, let's say, polluter. And he punched the EPA. He hates Trump to put him in charge of the EPA. That definitely does weaken that institution, and that's not a good thing. But some of these other institutions, like, for instance, the CIA, the DEA, any law enforcement agency, these institutions need to be weakened a little bit, and they need to be put in check, and they need to be exposed for the evil they do. The CIA, a torture program, and gets put in jail. Then the person in charge of said torture program gets promoted. Okay, don't tell me that institution needs protected. All right, this is why we are supposed to protect whistleblowers. I mean, my God. So anybody got any questions or anything they want to talk about? Oh yeah, I had the debate earlier with T.O. Tom. He was actually pretty respectful. He still didn't get a couple pretty simple concepts. He couldn't get over the fact that if you give poor people money, those dollars will eventually accumulate with the rich. I said, well, the only way you could stop that is if we kill the rich. Or if we kill the poor or we kill the rich. But, it's not feasible. Should we, the whole thing about it is, I was trying to tell him too, is when we have if we had a federally guaranteed living wage job program in place today, people's attitudes about government would be changing. People would start trusting government to provide our needs more than the for-profit markets. And so people's attitudes would be changing. Then when a problem does present in private sector production for whatever reason, the majority of people would be comfortable with government seizing the means of production for the general welfare of society. So in my view, this is how we transition into a post-capitalist economy. And I didn't make that up. That comes from Ellis Winningham. I mixed and matched a little bit. So, and he's right. He's absolutely right. Again, they're going on about all the leakers, and I just saw Trump a little bit ago talking about he's a big believer in the freedom of the press, but also in classified information. And so, real quick, here's my position on this. If you're leaking information just to make money, the stupid shit like about Trump's comb over or petty arguments in the office, that's a crime, and that shouldn't be covered by whistleblower status. Now, exposing human rights violations, war crimes, things like that should have been absolutely covered by whistleblower status. All right. Nothing, I don't care if it's classified or not, it's not more important than our laws and our values. That's the whole point. And Mr. Kiriakou stood up for his values. And he had an incredible, and it's up to us to honor that and fight for him. Right now, he's trying to get a pardon from President Trump. And I think that we all need to, talk about this and help him get this. He deserves it. If anybody deserves a pardon, John Kiriakou deserves a pardon. He's supposed to be coming on the show, too, this week, this next week coming up, to talk about all of this and talk about, his journey through life and his ordeal, and talk about getting a pardon and different things. Yeah, absolutely, Mark Fabian. There was a time whistleblowers were honored. Absolutely. There was a time, greed was frowned upon. There was a time community cared about each other. And the family unit was strengthened by government instead of destroyed. That's the thing with neoliberalism. It affects everything in our society. Both parents have to work starvation wage jobs to make ends meet, and they still can't make ends meet. They still got to be on the black market to make ends meet. And also it leaves their kids vulnerable to drugs and to violence as well, because no one's at home with them. There's no public services. There's no school services for them. No after school services. There's nothing in our communities. You come to Newcastle, Pennsylvania, and there's needles in our playgrounds. I got to go through the jungle gym every time before I put my kid on it to make sure there's no needles. Many times, and then I got to wipe with sanitation sheets all over because I pick the needles up and throw them away. Then you got to sanitize everything. I mean, this is insanity. It's really hard for me to bottle it up and to try to be professional and talk about it in a professional way. Because really, I just want to start screaming and showing all the information to you guys, let you guys see what's going on, see it from the real perspective, so you don't get caught up in all the BS of the media. Anybody got any questions or anything they want to talk about? Yeah, blocking it. Trisha talking about blocking internet access for Julian Assange. That is definitely a war on freedom of speech. Julian Assange may not be American, but he's still a hero. And he gave the outlet to people like Edward Snowden or Chelsea Manning or John Kiriakou to, expose America's evil. And every time I hear them saying RT is a propaganda arm of the Kremlin, I want to scream. Because first of all, CNN from the NSA on, and he was bitching about WikiLeaks and how they just publish anything without any regard for the consequences. And he actually said on live TV, he said, our journalists don't do that. They make sure they run everything by us before they publish. And so he basically told us to our face, we have state-run media. It is the propaganda arm of our government. And it's also, like I shared a meme today, Obama passed the renewal for the Patriot Act. I forget what it's called. The authorized, I forget, but he passed that bill. It's like the Patriot Act. And, this allows, it has right in it, it allows for propaganda, state-run propaganda. We see, and we seen on WikiLeaks this exact thing. I guess the State Department had $500 million, and they got caught making fake terrorist videos, fake jihadist videos, fake beheadings, and they would release the tapes to the media, CNN, MSNBC, and they would get released as real things. And this was all in an effort to get public support for the war on terror. It's all to get more support for more for-profit wars. There's my veteran buddy, Lance. What's up, buddy? Why it's so important to get people to understand MMT. Absolutely, Lance. Without an understanding of how our operational reality, without an understanding of how our economy works from the macro level, you can't see through all the con games of the ruling class. If you don't understand profit, you're going to be out there fighting to tax the rich, to get government to do their job. But government doesn't need tax revenues. All right, government doesn't need profit. Government makes money at will by decree from thin air. That's why, what I say is the ruling class rule with a illusion of power, and that's maintained with lies and scare tactics about money, specifically designed to keep us divided and fighting against our own interests. MMT destroys those lies with simple logic and scientific fact. And so it unites all sides for the public purpose first and foremost, as mandated by the Constitution. All right, that's how you get Republican like Mike Norman, who in reality is to the left of anybody in the DNC, or even Bernie Sanders, because that's a testament to the power of MMT. So anyway, as usual, please join Real Progressives, follow Real Progressives. We're trying to get this thing started. We're trying to bring real truth, real substance, news, and we need donations. Anything you could do. Share this video as much as possible. Look up people like Dr. Stephanie Kelton. Look up people like Dr. Fidel Kaboub, Dr. Stephen Hell. Look up economist Ellis Winningham, Pavlina Chernova, Mike Norman. Look up Warren Mosler. Follow the Modern Money Network. Follow Deficit Owls. But follow and join Real Progressives. We are the revolution. We are the media. My kid's getting crazy now, so I got to get off. Come here, Rosario. Say hi to everyone. All right, so we're the revolution. This is why we do this. Right here. We can't leave our kids with a future worse off without at least trying to speak truth to power, without at least trying to fight back. Buddy.
Yeah.
We got to fight. Put your hand up like this. Power to the people.
Power.
Say power to the people.
Power to the people.
Yeah, good boy. All right, guys, take it easy. Go see.